Hi again, Clint Adams here, just following up from my first session that I did around mental health and talking about resilience. I've still been doing the push-up challenge. Today was actually the last day, so I thought I'd finish off with a video just kind of focusing a little bit on some different things that maybe some people haven't really thought about, or maybe just don't have that knowledge, or the depth of knowledge, I guess, from the stuff I've done over the years as a counsellor and a lot of other work I've done with people. So I guess if you think about counselling, I know last time I mentioned red brain, blue brain, just to illustrate kind of an easy way of thinking of how your brain operates when we do have that fight or flight kind of response in our brain, which is the amygdala, which is that red brain. And just to recap, blue brain's kind of using your prefrontal cortex, which is kind of the more modern part of the brain, much more social part of the brain than red brain. So if you think of counselling, for example, the way our brains work, we create thought patterns to make life easier for us, and that's kind of what happens. We experience, we experience things over the years as we develop as children, and we develop patterns that obviously mostly work for us, but sometimes that can be a bit of a distraction for us. So if we have a thought pattern, for example, where you think about something and it's designed to make life easier for us. So think of something like driving. When you first start driving, you've got to think about lots of things. You think about what your feet are doing. You think if it's a manual, you're even thinking about what your gear you got to be in, and you've got to worry about the road and all that sort of stuff. And it's quite intensive and really, really energy sapping. You can be quite tired after even 15, 20 minutes when you still first learn to drive. But then as you get better at it and do it more often, you could drive for hours and not even think about driving, and it's nowhere near as draining. And the brain's designed to obviously do those things for us, so that we're not using too much energy all the time for things that we would do on a regular basis, like driving or any other things. But what can happen, obviously, is when we get stuck in, say, a red brain response, which is only supposed to be designed for a short period, 10 to 15 seconds. But, people with PTSD, for example, when I was dealing with police, they will think of something that's happened, and it's a real event, something maybe very traumatic. Someone points a gun at them, which I did have a person have that happen to them. And what happens is they then think about that event. So now it's a memory of that event. It's not the actual event. So they rethink about that event, and it creates a pattern. If they keep thinking of it over and over in their head, the brain starts to think that it's happening over and over, and it responds in a shortcut, which is what all our thinking is designed to kind of end up in, having that shortcut. So when we're having a shortcut that's quite destructive, because when we do go into a red brain response, lots of things happen. Blood drains from your brain, your body gets ready to purge excess kind of weight and stuff like that. And so, lots of things can happen if you stay in that pattern over and over and over, and it can be really destructive. Your cortisol levels go up, lots of other things happen in the body. And basically, if you're not sleeping, you're not regenerating, it just becomes a bigger health issue. So in a nutshell, what we're trying to do is, if you are stuck and you've created a shortcut, like a person with PTSD, what we want to try and do as a counsellor is get you to change and interrupt the pattern. Because what happens is, now it's a shortcut, you'll think about that event, or it'll just pop into your unconscious part of your brain, and you kind of don't necessarily know what to do. So it pops in there, you have that experience again as if it's happening, your brain's thinking it's happening, your body thinks it's happening, and you're responding to that event again and again and again. And so what we're trying to do, again, when I look at red brain, so that's a red brain response. What I'm trying to do as a counsellor is get you to change from red into a blue brain response. I want you to start using that prefrontal cortex. And there's many techniques that we can use to get you to do that. That's why I'm not kind of aligned to a specific psychological modality, if you like. I'm really, because a lot of them all work for different people. Different things get people into blue, but most of the time the pattern that does help person is the fact that they've switched from being in red, and whatever's got them into blue has been the thing that's helped them the most. So, some people find religion, some people go out and do great things for other people, selfless stuff, go and volunteer time. One of the techniques, one of the reasons those things work is it focuses on something else. So you're interrupting it. So if you were thinking about, a post-traumatic issue, but you decide, I'm going to go do something nice for someone else, or volunteer my time for someone else, it changes your focus from being red. you're worried about you. It's very inside, internalized, or, you know, I'm under threat, to focusing on something else. That something else is what I call blue brain experience. And anything that gets you doing that is really important. So one of the key ones that I used to use is just getting people to analyze their thoughts. So the thoughts diary, for example, pretty simple task, but what it is doing is the blue brain is the analytical part of the brain. So by doing analysis work on your actual thoughts, switches you from red into blue to at least interrupt that red. So one of the things I would get people to do is say, the moment that thought pops in your head, I want you to think about it. I want you to write something down, just one line, to say, you know, what you thought, how you thought about it. So instead of them firing into red, going over the same pattern and not switching, you're trying to interrupt that pattern. So the more you interrupt that pattern and the more you put things in between to push you into blue and hopefully stay into blue, will help kind of that whole process. So the number of blue things you can do to interrupt that is a key. So I would start off with, say, the thoughts diary, and then over a week or two, I'd catch up with the person again, and then we start to focus on, you know, them focusing on the event, but changing it in their heads like you would as a director of a movie. You know, the event happened, the guy pointed a gun at me, but then the little bang thing popped out instead of a bullet. So, you know, you can change that. You've got the ability to change that whole event for the brain over time by interrupting that process and getting into blue. And again, as I said the other day, there's many things that work, or what's a blue experience for me may not be a blue experience for you. So finding out the things that get you into blue is a real key part of any kind of counseling. Anytime you want to interrupt a process, you've got to think differently, but you want to try and think in blue. So if you understand that concept, you'll find things to do better. And you know, that's a key part of it, is about working out what works for you and what are your blue experiences, and then doing those things. So, you know, pretty simple once you kind of get the concept of what those things can be. And there's many things that you can do, you know. Some people go and walk in nature. Some people go for a swim. Some people want to do a lot of exercise. Again, anything that's going to help interrupt you in the red space and get you into blue is really helpful. And again, you know, blue brain is very social. So if you can get around people, talking to people, going and helping people, doing things like that, really important. So hope you got something out of that. You know, if you did like it, certainly send it on. Appreciate it. Thank you.